Good afternoon. This is Andy Goodwin, Head of Progression, for those of you who don't know me. I am delighted to have Pennie Byrne with us today from Anglia Ruskin University, a senior lecturer in social work. And indeed, that's what our talk is going to be all about. Do take pen and paper to hand if you want to make notes, but also be aware that I am going to be recording this as well, so you can catch up later on if you want to return to this. So if I might turn to you, Pennie, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's been a very busy day.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much.
Busy day marking assignments. So it's a pleasure to actually clock off from doing assignments and come and speak to your classes here.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you, and we do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. If you don't mind, then what I'd like to do, Pennie, is I'm just going to switch off my camera and hand over to you and leave you to do your presentation.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Yes, as Andy said, my name is Pennie. I'm a senior lecturer here at Anglia Ruskin University. I'm also the course leader for the BA social work here. And yeah, it's quite a great place to work, I have to say. I've been here for 5 years. And before that, I was a social worker in the children and families field for just over 20 years. So it's really nice to be at a university where most of our lecturers have been social workers before, like myself. And through working with student social workers, usually on placement, we've decided ourselves that we wanted to actually work with students in education. But you really get a feel for different placements working at the university. And even coming and speaking to you all today is a really good opportunity for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a presentation with you. And if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or shout it out if you want to. Perhaps we'll get a few minutes for any questions at the end. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen and go over to my PowerPoint. Can somebody tell me if they can see that where it says BA Social Work?
That's great, Pennie.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can move myself up out of the way. There we go. Okay. So yes, as you can see here, we love the color yellow at Anglia Ruskin. Yellow and blue are our school colors, and these slides are quite yellow. So if you're not partial to the color yellow, I do apologize in advance. But we are quite a big university. And when we are thinking about social work, some of you may be happy to know that we're not just on one campus. You actually get your choice or your pick of 3 different campuses. So we have Chelmsford, which is where I'm primarily based, campus in Cambridge. We're both, Chelmsford and Cambridge, full-time courses. And then we also have our Peterborough campus, and this is where students can join us on the part-time course. We're actually quite, as I said, we are a large program. We normally take around 50 to 60 students in Chelmsford each year on the BA program. In Cambridge, we take anywhere from 25 to about 35. And in Peterborough, they can take anywhere from between 15 to 25 there. I just happen to be at the one where we're very, very blessed with having a lot of students. Okay, so as I said a little while ago, I was also a social worker in children and families before I joined the university. But social workers, they do a wide range of things, and you can be a social worker just about anywhere, from being in schools, from working in mental health, either young people or child mental health or adult mental health. you can work with older adults, you can work with individuals who might have a learning difficulty. It's just endless, endless. We have colleagues who work with homeless population, people who experience difficulties with drug and alcohol. So the list is endless of what you can do when you're a qualified social worker. One of the things that all of us have in common is that we are really centered around the individual. And we believe that social cohesion and social justice is really, really important for each and every individual. And sometimes that sets us apart from others in people profession. So we have this strong ideas around working together as a team, of human rights. We're also thinking constantly about our decision-making process and how theories around the way people interact with each other, and theories such as behavioral theory and attachment theory, where we bring those in order to think about why people perhaps make the decisions that they make, or why are they in the situation that they are, which could be lots and lots of different things. And we use some of those things to assist individuals or groups of people who we work with. One of the things that, because I teach the year ones when they come in, one of the things that we also do is talk about some of the stereotypes of the kind of individual who might be working with a social worker. And I think a lot of our students who come in are really quite surprised over who might need help, who we can spend more time helping, where money comes from, or different budgets that we can help people, how we work with different professionals. So I think in year one, now we're just finishing up year one, and some of the students have said to me, wow, I have learned so much. I thought I knew exactly what a social worker did. I'm surprised at the lengths that social workers can go to help people, and the wide range of people who social workers are there for. So what we're looking for when we're thinking about a social worker is some real key qualities. So because we're there to assist people, we're not there to make decisions for people. We're not there to tell them what to do. We're there to be in someone's life for as long as needed, but not stay too long if people are doing well on their own. Okay, so as I said, we work with people from all walks of life, and so you've got to be able to have interest in working with different people from different backgrounds, which includes different religions, different ethnicities, different age groups. You've got to be able to have an interest in that generally. When you graduate on the course, what social workers do is they tend to specialize in an area, such as the area I was telling you about earlier. For me, it was children and families, and even more so, 10 years before I had this job, my specialty area was looked after children, and particularly children who were in foster care. So you've got to be someone, whether you're working in a specialty field or working in a local authority kind of assessment and duty team, you've got to be able to be someone who can act quickly to new situations and remain calm under pressure. That's really, really important. The two of those things really go hand in hand. And alongside that, you've got to be someone who can be approachable, use your own initiative, but you've also got to be somebody who will stand up for what you believe in, even if it might be you disagree with what your line manager has advised. You've got to be able to say, I hear what you're saying. This is my view. Can we talk this through and come up with an agreement that best serves the individual I'm working with? Okay, but we've also got something down there, which is to deal with challenging behavior. And I think it's important to have that down there. I wouldn't say that's a huge part of our job alongside the other things, but there are times where people don't necessarily want a social worker in their lives. They want to be left to get on with their own lives as they see fit. And to be honest, that's what we all want. We want to be left alone. And having that feeling where somebody is interfering in your life can cause a lot of feelings within people. And of course, when your feelings are all stirred up, that often comes out in your behavior. And social workers need to understand that and be able to build relationships with people right from the get-go. If you're somebody, in other words, who can build rapport with somebody quite soon after you meet them, then this could possibly be a good job for you, because it's only when you build that rapport, when these feelings are coming out from individuals who are experiencing a great level of stress, plus having the social worker in their life, when the challenge of behavior might come about because of that, you've got to be able to step in there quickly, recognize it before it escalates, and work with that individual. Okay, it is tough, but I can tell you, having been an experienced social worker, that it's an extremely rewarding job, and one in which I have enjoyed very, very much. Okay, so at the university, as I said before, we have our 3 campuses. And where this picture is taken, I think that must be at our Cambridge campus. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, Penny, I have a little bit of an idea of the expectations of social workers, or who might be best suited to be a social worker, what kind of qualities are you looking for? But we also need to think about, you know, I have an interest here, but what am I going to study? What's going to make me become a good, decent, qualified social worker? Well, we want people to be able to learn more about human growth and development, things about mental health and disability. As I said earlier, some social work theories, which help underpin your assessment and ideas on how to best help people. We also, as I said, need people who can communicate effectively. So in terms of being a good listener, which is always the answer when I'm interviewing students who want to come on the course, I'll say, why do you want to be a social worker? And they'll say, well, everyone tells me I'm a really good listener. And that is very, very important. But there are other forms of communication which are equally important. So we're looking for people who can express themselves, be able to listen, but also be able to repeat back to the individual, paraphrase what the individual may have said, as a way of starting up a dialogue and talking back and forth to see what it is that the individual needs. So those communication skills can also be nonverbal. So maybe how you come across to people. What is your posture like? Are you somebody who's inviting people to come and talk to you? Or are you kind of closed? And there'll be all sorts of theories on this kind of open posture kind of, you know, some kind of talk around there. And it's quite interesting, actually, and worth a read, because those of us who are social workers, we want people to see us as someone they can approach, as someone who is able to help them, somebody who will be there to advocate for them. Okay, so communication skills are really important. Alongside, we're always thinking constantly about what our own personal and professional ethics and values are. We have a strong set of ethics and values in social work. And if you go onto something like Social Work England website or the British Association of Social Workers website, you'll be able to see a list of our particular ethics and values for our profession. And if you think you're interested in coming to the university, you will be having an interview, which I'll talk about later, but having a good understanding of social work professional ethics and values is really, really important. So that's a little hint in case you're thinking about applying to the university at some point. We also have to be aware of things like legislation. There are countless pieces of legislation for different age groups here within the UK, but we also have things like human rights legislation. We have equalities legislation, and that helps us to, one of the things that helps us to do is make sure people receive fair treatment, that their human rights are adhered to, that we are, that we're working with people in an anti-oppressive and anti-discriminatory way. And we rely on legislation and policy to underpin that practice for us. So we teach our social work students about how to think about oppression and discrimination. And how do I, the individual, think about oppression and discrimination? Where do I fit into that? How does it exist in our society? And how do I combat that on a regular basis? Because social workers, yes, you will be learning about it a lot at the university. And that's because we're setting you up for the rest of your career, because it's something that you don't just learn and then put by the wayside. You are developing your skills and your capabilities in things like anti-oppression, anti-discriminatory, your knowledge base around law and theories. This is just the beginning of your career. We also talk a lot about partnership and multidisciplinary working. If you pay attention to some of the social media articles that have been out there in terms of social work or other professions, other people professions like teaching and say nursing or the police, you may have picked up that professionals don't always communicate very well with each other. We don't always share information as we should. And sometimes children or vulnerable adults fall through the cracks. And so a lot of work has been done over the last probably 15 years especially, and even legislation brought in to help not only social workers, but other key, I'll say key professionals to work together, okay? Because sometimes you may only think about yourself and what you need to do to help someone, but we are constantly helping our social workers to think about the other roles that the professionals who may also be involved, what roles they play. And we do quite a bit of role playing on it. And when you are on placement, whenever our social work students are on placement, they get to work with a variety of different professionals. So it's quite a packed program, to say the least. So how would I study? Well, as I said before, a part-time student in Peterborough will be there for 4 years. Okay, and it'll be a part-time class that you'll be at, say, 2 days a week. If you're in Cambridge or Chelmsford, you need to think that you're there, that you need to be a full-time student, which is basically 5 days a week, just as if you were having a full-time job. And we do have lectures and workshops. As I said before, we do have placement. So in your second and third year, you'll be spending time in placement. In your second year, it'll be 70 days, 70 full days in placement, which lasts over 2 trimesters, usually from October to about the end of May. And in your third year, you'll be in placement from September until May or June, because that will be 100 days. But a lot of being at university is about independent study. So although you will be on campus, if all goes well, this past year we were teaching online, but we also had some flexibility where small groups could come to campus. But usually classes are 2 days a week. So you might have a 3-hour, we usually do, in social work, we normally do it in 3 or 4 hour chunks. So you could have 1 day a week, you could have 1 module. So if you're going into year 1, in your first trimester, you'd have 2 modules. So actually, I stand corrected, 3 altogether, but 2 of those modules you'll have over 12 weeks, and you'll go in once a week for that module. Let's say it's going to be on a Monday, and then go in again on a Wednesday for the other module. And you'll be there between 3 and 4 hours for that module. And then you'll have those classes for 11 weeks. Then, of course, we always help our students with their assignments. So usually in week 12, you're meeting with your module tutor and going over some of your written work, that kind of thing. Although most of us who are teaching, we tend to have workshops. Well, for example, I have the workshop with the year 1s. We have a class, and then we have a half-hour break, and then I'll have an hour workshop where I'll be discussing the assignment, helping people with the assignment. I often get some of our Study Skills Plus. I'll talk about them in a little while. Some of our colleagues who help our students with their writing, they'll come into the classroom, and we'll look at how best to plan your essay, how to, write your draft, your second draft possibly. So we want our students to do well, but we know that this is your first time at university. So we do want to help people with their research skills and their writing skills. So we do all sorts of things in terms of assessments. We don't have any exams, which some of you might be very happy to hear. I can remember being very happy to hear when I did my undergraduate degree that there were no exams. It is all essays, except there are a couple of presentations, like group presentations, where we put you in small groups for some of the modules. A practice placement portfolio. So when you're in placement, you're putting together a portfolio of things that you've learned, and then that has to be handed in at the end of your placement. And of course, in our year 3, we do have a dissertation. We call it the undergraduate major project, and it's a 10,000 word literature review. But you get a supervisor for that, and your supervisor meets with you throughout the year to help you with that. But by the time you're in 3, you really know how to use the library, you know how to demand your supervisor returns your phone call. If they're a couple days late, by that time you'll realize, oh, I need to give that person a call. So we help you all the way through. Okay, so I mentioned a little while ago that I have someone from Study Skills Plus come into the classroom and help students during our assignment tutorials. I have to say, I have worked with other universities, and I have children who are at university, and I think in comparison, we are in a very good state here at Anglia Ruskin. We have a huge student support service, and I am really, really pleased that we do, because it helps so many of our students, but it also helps me as the lecturer that I have someone that I can work with the student. I can speak to the mentor who might be helping the student with an assignment. Sometimes the 3 of us will do some work together to help the student. So we do have something called Study Skills Plus, which everybody can access, and I encourage every single student to access it, where you're meeting with a mentor, and you can have access to that individual several times a semester. And it's really great, especially if you need to work on particular writing skills. Also, we have some students on the course who have a particular disability, whether that be a physical disability, a learning disability, such as dyslexia. And we have student support mentors who many of our students on the social work course also can work with, and many of them choose to work with the student support service about once a week for about a half hour as they're working through their assignments. So it's not you do your assignment and then you get help at the end. All of us, especially if you're going to those particular services, they'll want to help you, say, from week 2 all the way through, so that by the time you hand in your paper, it's a really, really good paper. We also have a counseling service, which is confidential, and some of our students have accessed it before and have said really great things about it. Yeah, I'm really, really impressed with the things our students have come back and told us about the well-being service. We've had that for a number of years. We have brilliant faculty student advisors who I work with as well, trying to advise our students, because not everybody wants to come to the course leader to talk to me about any particular problems you might be having. Sometimes people want to go to someone they don't know, first of all, and that's where you can speak to a student advisor to let them know how you're doing on the course, but also if you need an extension, for example, or if you need to have a leave of absence for a little while, they're really good in terms of that. And we have all sorts of different kinds of health service, chaplaincy service. The library is fabulous, and we've got our own subject librarian named Jane, who, you know, is extremely helpful in helping students find the resources they need to do their papers. Now, Jane is just in Chelmsford. Cambridge and Peterborough will have their own librarian allocated to them. Okay, so I mentioned a little while ago about placements. Oh, and Andy, by the way, I don't have a clock in front of me, so if I speak over my allocated time, please let me know, okay?
I'll let you know, Penny.
Thanks. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about placements, and a lot of students, this is the current year ones, they cannot wait. And they have very recently filled in a couple of pages about the kind of placement they would like to be at. So over the summer, some of our colleagues will look at those and try to put people in the kind of first year placement that they would like to go to. They look at their skills and abilities, or maybe someone hasn't had very much skills and abilities, but they also look at where would that person like to go. You know, maybe it's somewhere where you've never worked with, for example, people who might be facing homelessness. So you'd really like to see what that's about. So we look at the paperwork that the year ones have just completed. And by the time September comes around, we tell them, well, look, we've lined you up with a placement, and you're going to be going for an interview. And by October, you're going to be starting that placement. And they cannot wait. and especially, you know, even our year 2 and 3 students, they, you know, it's all about the placements. You know, they just really, really like to be hands-on. They do come to the modules. We do strike up great relationships with them. But even in the classrooms, where all of our examples from when students get in year 2 and 3, they're all connected to their placements. And it's great because students are actually talking about things that are relevant right now to them. And that's issues that are going on in their placements. So In order to get on your placement, you do have to do some work in year one. So a little while ago when I was saying, well, you'll have 2 modules, and then I said, actually, you'll have 3. So we do have a 3rd module that you will have in trimester 1, and that starts a little bit in trimester 1, and it goes into trimester 2 as well. You will have 20 days where you're working with a group of lecturers and also some individuals from our service user and care involvement group, and we call it SUKI for short. And these individuals are people who have experience somehow in working with social workers, perhaps being a service user or being a carer, and they are very down to earth, and they will let you know, they let us all know about what good practice means to them, and they really help shape our skills and abilities. And they do a lot of work in this assessed readiness for direct practice. You see, Social Work England tells all universities, including us, that in order for students to go onto a social work placement, they need to be prepared for that. And so we spend 20 days preparing you for your first placement. And at the end, you do have to take a test as such, where you are interviewing somebody that you've never met before. And it's actually not a real person off the street, of course. It's somebody who is in our SUKI group, and they play a character. And you're working with that person. You need to be able to demonstrate the skills and abilities that you've picked up in your first trimester. And we set up scenarios to help everybody with that. It's a really supportive environment. So you'll be fine, but we need to do it to be able to show to the placement that you're working with that we've prepared our student for this. And plus, it gives students a lot of confidence that they're not just being thrown in the deep end, that we've taken the time to prepare them, and we feel rest assured that this social work student is able to start their placement. So yeah, so as I said, it's 20 days, or if you are in Peterborough, it'd be 10 days. Yeah, and then when you get in year 2, you do something another 10 days, still related to the same module, and this is called Advanced Skills Days. So it is spread out, those 10 days. I think this year, instead of being in years 2 and 3, it's primarily going to be in year 2 this coming year. And that is just some extra days where we have guest speakers coming in from various avenues who come and talk to us about their expertise and help us get in thinking about some of the things I said before, you know, things like multi-professional work, things around mental health. So you name it, it's quite different each time. So now preparing for placement is really important. It's even important for you as you're thinking about whether or not I want to be a social worker, because every university will offer social work placements in year 2 and 3. You can't actually go into social work without having that experiential element, okay? So we have our placements with local authorities. So we do have them in Essex, Thurrock, Southend. We do have some in London. We do have in Peterborough, in Cambridge. Trying to think of the other place over by Cambridge, I can't, Hertfordshire. So we do have placements, you know, around the 3 different campuses. And you need to be able to travel to your placement. Sometimes, yeah, it could be 1.5 hours, but we would try really hard to have it stay within the hour. What a lot of local authorities want, especially if you're in a place like Essex, for example, which is really spread out, is they want you to have a car and access to a car. Access to a car and a driver's license is what they need, okay? If you, and in fact, so if you are thinking, for example, being a student in Chelmsford, really our main provider of final year placements is Essex County Council, Thurrock and Southend. So they will not even interview students unless they have access to a car and a driver's license. But if you live in London, and we have a placement in London, many of you who might be from London will realize that there is no parking in London. So, you know, if you don't have a car, no problem, because there's lots of buses and tubes and trains. So that is really something to think about, okay? Whether you own a car, whether you think you will ever get your license, social workers are on the road a lot. That is part and parcel of the job, and it always has been. You know, we're not in the office that much, so you do have to think, where would I be working? How would I get around to people's homes? Okay. Okay, so we do have something. All English universities have social work bursaries. Okay. Now, there is no bursary available in year 1, but it is available in years 2 and 3 at all 3 campuses, okay? And this doesn't come from the university itself. It comes from the Department of Health, and it doesn't cover all your fees, but it covers about half of your fees in year 2 and 3. But really, you can use the bursary, you know, how you want to use it. If you are thinking, yes, I'd be interested in a social work bursary, and I would encourage everybody who's interested in social work to be interested in a social work bursary. It's about $3,500 a year, maybe around maybe $4,000 a year, but there's a couple of strings attached to the bursary, okay? So first of all, not everyone will get a bursary. The Department of Health has made it a competitive process. So only about 90% of the students in England each year will get a bursary. Okay, so you have to think, how can I be sure to get a bursary? And that's why I'm here to tell you. I am one of the bursary coordinators as well for the social work team. And one of the things that counts in order to get a bursary, first you have to apply through NHS social work bursaries. So it's worth going online and having a look at that. Second, you need to be nominated by Anglia Ruskin. We have to be able to nominate you. And to get a nomination, you have to do 2 things. One, you have to do really well on your interview. So if you're happy to come onto the course and you apply to the university and all your paperwork checks out fine, the admissions team will send us an email to say, okay, so-and-so looks good. We're going to invite them in for an interview. Now, when you come for your interview, and this summer, we'll be doing them online like we did last summer. And you'll meet with us for like maybe 20 minutes, and we'll ask you just a couple of questions. But we want to know, basically, why are you interested in becoming a social worker? And why would you be good at it? Okay, so your questions are going to be based around that. When it comes time, so then you'll go into year 1. It'll all become dormant in a way. You go into year 1. When it comes time for your ARDP, you have to pass your ARDP. That's where you're going to have your one-to-one with someone from our Suki team. who's playing the role of a service user, and you are yourself trying to help the individual, you need to pass that, and it's pass-fail, but you need to pass it on your first attempt. And the other thing is, about this time right now, we're getting out how well you did on your interview. And so usually only those who receive the top scores will be nominated for an interview. But in order for us to put that forward, those two things need to happen. So you need to do very well on your interview. I can't stress that enough, to come on to the course, but to be in with a shot for a bursary that you don't have to pay back. And people will say to me, well, what else do I need to do, Pennie? Well, get on the Social Work England website, see what social workers do. And also the website for the British Association of Social Workers. Know what's going on, in the UK and in the world. What's going on? What are some of the topical interest stories? What are they talking about? How does this relate to social work? So, we want people who have an interest in society to be on the course. So a couple of hints there on how you can get a good score for your interview. Okay, and of course you have to apply for it. Again, it won't be in year 1, but you're eligible for it in year 2 and 3. Okay. And yeah, I've gone over this already. We will ask you about yourself, so know who you are, know why this particular course is important to you. And of course, just briefly about the entry requirements. Yep, you do have to have some, for level 3, some UCAS points. And I think for BTEC, distinction merit for a grade. Or if you're in an access course, a minimum of 30 level 3 credits at merit. And of course, your GCSEs between A and C grade. Now, I'm not the, I don't get too involved in the admissions, but if you had any particular questions, I'm sure the answers can be found on the website or even to call admissions themselves. And I've already said the successful interview. That's really my remit. That's where our social work team gets involved. Okay, and as I said, even at the very beginning, there are lots and lots of different jobs in social work. Lots of careers, long careers, that you can have in social work. Or if you're somebody who likes to mix things up a little bit, maybe work with older adults for a little while and then change to working with preschool age children, you can do that when you're a social worker, because social work degree, the undergraduate degree, is, we refer to it as a generic degree, so you're learning about people from a variety of different walks in life on a social work course. So you actually are qualified to be able to help and assist anyone from any background, age, where the individual might be from. And it's usually when you go into your first job or your second job where you're really thinking about, well, what area do I want to specialize in? And that's, as I said earlier, is what happened to me. I started off, I wanted to work in local authority as children and family social worker, and I did that for a number of years. And then I decided, I was working with more and more children who were coming into care, and I decided, okay, now I think I want to specialize working with children coming into care and their foster cares. So I was able to do those two things, which, yeah, I really, really enjoyed. And it meant I could work with children for longer periods of time. But if I so wanted to, I could quit my job at the university tomorrow, which I won't be doing, but I could, and I could work in another area of social work. Say I could work in criminal justice area. I could be a hospital social worker. So, you know, once you are registered through Social Work England and you re-register every couple of years, then you remain being a social worker. Okay, and that too is also a really good part of the job. And of course, all our students come back and say, you know, what they appreciated about being on the course. This is Mary, who a couple years ago actually started our social work society, which is led by students. And she still comes back, and so do people in her cohort that was with her. They're all now in different practice settings, but they come in as guest speakers in our class. Okay, so I can see Andy there, so he's probably going to tell me my time is almost up. Is that right, Andy?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. This is actually my last slide.
Right, good timing.
So very good timing. Just wanted to say that, you know, if you go online, if you're interested in looking at the university, learning more about us, you can go on our you know, even if you Google ARU, virtual taster days, you can find out some more things about us. And if you're interested, there's a email address at the bottom. Normally, we would have open days, and we have been doing those virtually this year. We've all taken turns doing that. And it's a place where you really can ask lots of questions. You know, we tried to do many throughout the year, so there's only maybe 10 of us having a discussion together. So it's quite easy to join. Some people join with their parents, which is great, you know, or a friend. Okay, so feel free to do that. And that's it. I'll stop my sharing now.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Some really good insights there. And I think one of the things I liked about your talk there in particular was it kind of gave an insight into the flexibility that this kind of job role offers.
Yeah,
and I don't think many people realize that when they're first thinking about it, because they tend to, well, as you all know, a lot of people are interested in social work to begin with, perhaps because of some experience that they've had. And it tends to focus down that interest to begin with, and that's fine, but it's good to see that you can branch out as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is one of the perks, as you said, because you can change your mind, and there's not very many jobs, professional jobs out there where you can alter it. So, you know, that there is that huge flexibility.
Absolutely. I wonder if I can just turn to those people who are watching. We can do this in one of two ways, or not at all, depending on whether all your questions have been answered. But if anybody has a question, would you like to type that in the chat box, or alternatively unmute yourself and then ask your question to Pennie? There's a sign of a good presentation, Pennie. All the questions
Oh, you think so, Andy?
Okay, in that case then, Pennie, it seems like there are no questions at this point, but of course you've left your email address and details there for people to get in touch if they need to. So all that remains is for me to say a huge thank you. That was a wonderful talk, a good insight.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I love talking about social work.
Great stuff.
So no problem. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome, and I'll leave it there. So thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.